Right, hello, and welcome to another Dauntless development video. Now, we're going to answer the question today, how do you become an indie game dev? How do you get that illustrious title so that you can have your name, Joe Blogs, Game Dev? And the answer is make games. So, this can be in any form. As long as you're making games, if you spend any time making games, and you want to call yourself a game dev, then you're a game dev. You don't have to have made millions or anything at all, money wise. You don't even have to have finished a game. It doesn't even have to be on a computer. You could technically be a game dev making card games. As long as what you are doing is developing a game, then you are a game dev. And if you're independent from a studio, you are an independent game dev. Um, So how to get started, how to become a game dev? Very simple. Just do it. Um, but other than that, if you aren't already a game dev, if you haven't already started making games, if you haven't um, started planning, um, then where you start will depend on you. So if you are somebody with a programming background, maybe you've never made any games, but maybe you come from software, then it's going to be quite easy for you to get in, because all you've got to do is kind of learn the ins and outs of a game engine, um, and then just use your coding skills to make games, which is pretty simple. But if you have no programming knowledge, you've got options. If you don't want to learn to program, like if you don't want to learn to write code anyway, you can use visual scripting. So there's a few solutions out there. Scratch is one of them. That lets you just kind of connect blocks together. Another one is Unreal Engine's blueprint editor. So that's visual scripting. So it basically means you just, rather than writing code yourself, you can just connect like the dots, like a graph. So you draw lines between things and you plug in variables by like physically placing them as opposed to referencing them in code. That's an option. However, if you are wanting to learn to program, I would recommend starting with C# in Unity if your aim is to just make games straight away. Um, Now, I've already got another video. Well, I've got two videos. I've got one video discussing C++ versus C#, which I'll probably put in a card. And I have Unity versus Unreal, which I'll probably also put in a card somewhere. If not, they'll be down in the description, or a comment. So I won't discuss the kind of the pros and cons too much with those, but what I would say is if your aim is to just quickly get into it and go straight to making games and just get a result as soon as possible, then I would recommend going for Unity with C# because it's kind of simple to pick up. There's loads of resources, and yeah, it's probably the easiest way to get into it. Now, so say you've got the coding part down. Although having said that, actually, as I said, you could be a game dev by making card games and physical games like board games. So you don't necessarily need to know all that. You could do it in uh, just for a physical game. In which case, just do it. Just get started. Go ahead. Start planning a project, and then just do it. So once you've got the coding skills, or whatever you need, the foundations to make the thing, then I would recommend always starting a project with a plan. And by a plan, I don't just mean I want to make an open world RPG game. I don't just mean I want to make Call of Duty. I mean, make a plan of what is the game that you're trying to make. So let's say you want to make an open world RPG, let's say. And then you break it down into what are the things that are involved in an open world RPG that I need. So for example, I need a player character and the ability to control them. I need enemies. I need a world. I would need sound effects, models, and I would need a leveling up system, and weapons and stuff like that, armor, equipment, items to pick up. So you think of all that, you map it all out, whether that be in like a class diagram, which I might do a video of on at one point, or whether that just be bullet points and just like filling out details about each part, and it'll really help you get going. But you don't have to stick to it religiously. So if you decide halfway through the project you don't want to do this thing, actually, you want to miss out this bit, maybe you don't want to have spells anymore, you just want it to be melee and ranged, then you can just get rid of that. You don't have to follow the plan completely religiously, but it will help you build up. And obviously you can also add things, but don't add too much, because that's called feature creep, and that's dangerous, because if you keep adding things you will never finish the project. Now, besides planning the project, another thing which can be really good for starting out is once you've got that foundation of skills, why don't you go for a game jam? So what a game jam is, if you don't know, is you get a short period of time. Now this varies depending on the game jam and who's organized it, but you can for example, I did one recently called Ludum Dare. And in that one, you had 48 hours, or at least I did, because I did something called the compo, where you had 48 hours instead of 72, and you had to submit all your code as well. But you might typically it's about 48 hours, sometimes 72, sometimes it's a week. But basically, just if you do a game jam, the idea is you've got a short period of time with a set theme, and you've just got to make a game in that short period of time. And there's low expectations. Like, it doesn't have to be brilliant. It doesn't even necessarily have to be finished all the time. You don't have to get everything done. But it's a really good resource to use in order to just get making games. You can start with nothing. They'll kind of provide you with an idea, as in the title, and then you just got to think of an idea for it and make it. And it doesn't matter whether it's not good. You'll get some feedback, you'll get to play other people's games on that theme, and it'll give you inspiration for future projects potentially. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to get a foundation. So whatever you're going to need, whether that's going to be visual scripting, writing code, or if that's just going to be making a physical game, get your foundation in place. Then you want to think about what kind of project you're going to do. And if you want to go for a game jam, then you'll go for a game jam, and you'll get. I guess you won't come up with the idea before the game jam, but once you start a project, whether that's a game jam project or on your own, you're going to plan it, and plan it out in as much detail as you can, and try not to add stuff until you're further on in the project. What I would recommend, just as a kind of a closing statement, is to just keep kind of shorter term goals. So don't make your goal to finish the game. Make your goal to get this system done. Then make your goal to get this system done, and that'll keep you rolling with the project. And don't be afraid to give up. Giving up isn't the worst thing in the world. Oh, sorry, my cat's in the background. Giving up isn't the worst thing. If you are working on a project, you realize it's not going to go anywhere, then you can stop, start a new project. If you're not feeling happy with your project, especially if it's your first project, there's no reason to bore yourself. It's all about just getting experience at the start. The chances are your first game isn't going to be a pop culture success. It's not going to make millions. So you might as well move on to something else before you bore yourself completely. However, I would say don't do it too often, but at the very beginning, if you start on something, try to finish it. But this is why I would recommend starting with something very small. So maybe start with making Uno, or maybe start with making just like a random number guesser game, something like that. Just very simple things. Snap. Just make really simple games where realistically there's no high code demand. It's mostly just if statements, and a couple scripts. But yeah, that's about it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.